All right, come on out here. Now, Frank is doing his calisthenics. Now, is he doing that because it's cold? Is he doing it to stay in shape? You're doing it to show us about our cars with shocks and struts because it really makes a difference.
It does. We wouldn't be running in these big old combat boots. We'd run in these nice, comfortable sneakers.
And why?
Well, as it relates to the shocks and struts, let me show you Lena here and show our viewers. We have shocks sitting right here as a display. This is a worn shock. See, real easy. This is a new shock.
So for people who don't know what shocks and struts do, this is when you get that like bouncy bounce, right? It's supposed to absorb all that so it's a nice smooth ride. And when you start doing this, then you know that you're losing the pressure.
If your ride feels like you're driving a horse, yes, that's going to be like your shocks and struts for sure. So here's a strut right here, okay? The coil spring will actually mount to give you that cushion.
Right, like a bed spring.
Exactly, that stability. So what I want our viewers to know is that they can check their shocks during an oil change, and if it's oily, that's an indication that they're leaking. And if they're leaking, they're going to compromise the ride, steering, and stability of their car. Now, we're going to talk about suspension and other ways as it relates to your control arms here. These control arms have rubber bushings, and you can see this rubber bushing here is actually wore out. Now, what does that mean? You're going to have a clunk. And just like the joints in your body that flex, I've got Gertrude here to help us out.
Gertrude.
Yeah, so these joints here, very similar to the joints on your suspension. So any clunks, rattles, any of that is an indication that you've got an issue with your steering or suspension.
Now let's talk about the cost of fixing these things, because it's all relative. I mean, maybe you just want to get yourself a new car. You could do that, but that's tens of thousands of dollars.
Invest in your ride. You know, shocks and struts, if you break them up, you can do the front two tires and then you can do the rear. You don't have to do all four at once. You know, you can spend anywhere from $800. Some of the European vehicles be well north of $1,000.
Is that each?
That's for the pair.
That's, okay. For the
all
front
four
and
wheels
back.
could be $1,200 to $1,500. Look, the fact is this though. You want to ensure that you're going to keep your vehicle for something like that. That's an investment. It's still less to put that investment in than buying a new car. But boy, when you talk about folks calling the garage and saying, Frank, why didn't you tell me about this years ago? You really restore the ride. And as you said earlier, it's like sleeping on an old mattress spring. Who needs that?
Right?
Exactly.
Why does it feel so bad? Because you know when you first get the car and you think, oh, it's so smooth. I feel like this is money well spent. And then later you're like, what the heck happened?
Yeah, what the heck happened? But the fact is we get used to a worn ride. It's what it's about. And so one more thing, guys. Shocks and struts, not only do they restore the ride and feel, and help with steering and stoppability, but boy, we're gonna save on tires. Now, if that worn shock is existed in your ride, it's gonna cause that tire to bounce up and down, and that's gonna wear tires out, and you may have some tire noise as you're driving down on the freeway.
So this is Frank again with the Desert Car Care of Chandler. So obviously you're in Chandler. Give me the cross streets of where you are.
Chandler and Dobson. If you can't make it to our garage, Chandler and Dobson, visit ASA, Automotive Service Association, az.org. You've got a great network of family-owned, operated shops in the community.
We love that. We love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing us around and bringing us some old shoes too. And Gertrude.